Professor Zixnorp slithered into the lecture hall, his gelatinous body undulating with barely contained excitement. Today was the day he'd been dreading and looking forward to in equal measure. The introduction of the first human exchange student to his galactic sociology class at the prestigious University of Centauri Prime. As he oozed onto the hovering platform that would elevate him to a height where all his students could see and smell him, he cleared his throat analogs and began the lecture. Greetings, class. Today we have a special guest joining us. Please extend all 6 of your appendages and welcome to Chad Armstrong, our first human exchange student. The class erupted in a cacophony of tentacle waving, beak clacking, and pheromone releasing that, to the untrained eye, might have looked like a mass seizure. Chad, a strapping young man with a mop of unruly brown hair and a grin that threatened to split his face in two, stood up and waved. Sup, alien dudes and dudettes. Stoked to be here. Professor Zixnorp's eye stalks twitched in confusion. I'm sorry, Mr. Armstrong, but I'm not familiar with the term sup. Is this some sort of human greeting ritual? Chad laughed, a sound that sent ripples of alarm through the gelatinous bodies of his classmates. Nah, prof, it's just short for what's up, like how's it hanging. The professor's confusion only deepened. I'm not sure I understand. Nothing is up, Mr. Armstrong. We are all firmly attached to the ground or our respective hovering devices, and I can assure you nothing is hanging either. The human's laughter only grew louder, causing several of the more sensitive students to vibrate in distress. Oh man, this is going to be fun, Chad chuckled, wiping a tear from his eye. Professor Zixnorp decided it was best to move on. Yes, well, today's lecture will focus on the peculiarities of death world species, with a particular emphasis on humans. Now, can anyone tell me what a death world is? A timid voice from the back of the room piped up. It belonged to Blorg, a sentient fungus from the peaceful gardens of Mycelia Prime. Isn't it a planet so horrifically dangerous that no sensible life form would ever evolve there? Excellent. Blorg the professor beamed, his bioluminescent spots glowing with approval. And can anyone give me an example of a death world? The class fell silent, tentacles and appendages fidgeting nervously. Finally, a brave Zorblaxian raised one of its 17 arms. Yes, Zorblax, the third Professor Zixnorp acknowledged. Well, Zorblax began, their voice quavering. I've heard terrible stories about a planet called Earth. The name was barely a whisper, as if speaking it too loudly might summon the horrors contained therein. Chad couldn't contain himself any longer. He burst out laughing, slapping his knee in a display that sent half the class into a defensive posture. Oh man, you guys are killing me. Earth isn't that bad. I mean, sure, we've got a few earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, tornadoes, hurricanes, blizzards, droughts, floods, wildfires, and the occasional pandemic. But it's home, The silence that followed was so profound you could have heard a Flurbian silk mite sneeze. Professor Zixnorp's gelatinous form quivered as he attempted to regain control of the class. Yes, well, Mr. Armstrong, perhaps you'd like to share some insights about your homeworld with the class. Chad shrugged, still grinning. Sure thing, Prof. What do you want to know? Well, the professor began, consulting his holo notes. Our records indicate that humans possess an unusual ability to consume almost any organic matter without ill effects. Is this true? Chad scratched his chin thoughtfully. I mean, yeah, I guess we can eat a lot of stuff, but it's not like we're going around munching on rocks or anything. A collective gasp rippled through the classroom. You mean, you can digest minerals? Squeaked Photon, a being of pure energy contained in a specially designed suit. What? No, that's not what Chad started, but he was cut off by the professor. Fascinating. So humans have evolved the ability to extract nutrients from inorganic matter as well. Truly remarkable. Please, Mr. Armstrong, tell us more about your dietary habits. Chad sighed, realizing this was going to be a long day. Look, we just eat normal food, okay? Fruits, vegetables, grains, meat. Another gasp, even louder this time. You consume the flesh of other creatures, Blorg exclaimed, his fungal cap turning a sickly shade of green. Well, yeah, Chad replied, starting to feel a bit defensive. It's not like we're monsters or anything. We farm animals humanely and you farm sentient beings, Professor Zixnorp interjected, his gelatinous form rippling with shock. Chad groaned, realizing he was digging himself into a deeper hole with every word. No, they're not sentient. Well, not in the way you're thinking. They're just animals, like cows and chickens and stuff. The class erupted into chaos, with students chittering, squawking, and emitting distress pheromones in equal measure. Professor Zixnorp frantically waved his tentacles, trying to restore order. Class, please. Remember, we are here to learn about other cultures, not judge them. Mr. Armstrong, perhaps we should move on to another topic. Our records also indicate that humans possess remarkable regenerative abilities. Is this true? Chad, grateful for the change of subject, nodded enthusiastically. Oh yeah, we heal pretty quick. I mean, I broke my arm last year playing football, and it was good as new in just a couple of months. The classroom fell silent once again, every alien eye or sensory organ fixed on Chad in disbelief. You regrew an entire limb in mere months, Professor Zixnorp asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Chad blinked, confused. What? No, I didn't regrow it. It just healed. You know, the bone fused back together and stuff. Your bones can repair themselves, Zorblax III exclaimed, all 17 of their arms waving in excitement. Yeah? Can't yours, Chad asked, looking around the room. The blank stares he received in return were all the answer he needed. Professor Zixnorp cleared his throat analogues again. Mr. Armstrong, I believe you may be underestimating the uniqueness of human physiology. In most species, a broken limb would require either extensive cybernetic replacement or, in less technologically advanced cultures, amputation. Chad's eyes widened. Seriously? Man, that sucks. I guess we are pretty tough, huh? Indeed, the professor agreed, his tone a mixture of awe and fear. Now, let's move on to another fascinating aspect of human biology. Our records indicate that humans can survive in a wide range of temperatures and atmospheric conditions. Can you elaborate on this, Mr. Armstrong? Chad shrugged, still trying to wrap his head around the idea of amputation for a broken arm. I mean, yeah, we're pretty adaptable. We've got people living everywhere from the Sahara Desert to Antarctica. It's no big deal. The class erupted into excited chatter once again. Professor Zixnorp had to emit a high-pitched whistle from one of his pores to quiet them down. Mr. Armstrong, he began, his voice quavering slightly. Are you saying that humans can survive in both extremely hot and extremely cold environments? Chad nodded. Sure, I mean, we need special gear for the really extreme stuff, but yeah, we can handle it. Photon's energy field flickered rapidly, a sign of intense emotion in their species. But how? The temperature difference between those two environments must be hundreds of degrees. 363 galactic standard units. To be precise, Professor Zixnorp added helpfully. Chad scratched his head. I don't know, man. We just do it. Humans are pretty good at adapting, I guess. The professor's eye stalk swiveled to face the rest of the class. You see, students, this is why humans are classified as an apex death world species. Their ability to survive in environments that would be lethal to most other life forms is truly remarkable. Blorg raised a timid pseudopod. Professor, is it true that humans also possess incredible strength and endurance compared to other species? Before the professor could answer, Chad chimed in. Oh yeah, we're pretty strong, I guess. I mean, I can deadlift like 400 pounds, and that's not even that impressive for a human. The class fell into stunned silence once again. Professor Zixnorp's gelatinous form quivered as he processed this information. Mr. Armstrong, he began cautiously. Are you saying that you can lift approximately 181.4 kilograms of mass, unassisted? Chad nodded, a bit confused by the reaction. Yeah, that's right. Why, is that a lot for you guys? Zorblax III's 17 arms all drooped simultaneously. The strongest member of my species would struggle to lift even a tenth of that weight, they admitted, their voice filled with a mixture of awe and fear. Chad's eyes widened as he looked around the room, suddenly realizing just how different he was from his classmates. Sorry, I didn't mean to brag or anything. Professor Zixnorp waved a dismissive tentacle. No need to apologize, Mr. Armstrong. This is precisely why we invited a human to join our class. The diversity of life in our galaxy is truly astounding, and it's important for our students to understand the full spectrum of biological capabilities. Photon's energy field pulsed rapidly, indicating excitement. Professor, I've heard rumors that humans possess some kind of internal skeletal structure. Is this true? Chad couldn't help but laugh. Wait, you guys don't have bones? How do you? You know what? Never mind. Yeah, we've got bones. A whole skeleton inside us. The class erupted into a mixture of fascinated murmurs and horrified gasps. Professor Zixnorp had to emit another high-pitched whistle to restore order. Yes, students, it's true. Humans possess an internal endoskeleton composed of a material called bone. This allows them to support their body weight and provides protection for their internal organs. Blorg's fungal cap turned a pale shade of blue, indicating deep thought. But Professor, wouldn't such a rigid internal structure be a disadvantage? How do humans avoid injury when falling or colliding with objects? Chad grinned, sensing an opportunity to impress his alien classmates. Oh, that's where our muscles and joints come in. Watch this. Before anyone could stop him, Chad leapt from his seat, did a backflip, and landed perfectly on his feet. The classroom erupted into chaos once again, with several students emitting high-pitched screams or their species equivalent, and others scrambling to hide under their desks. Professor Zixnorp's gelatinous form rippled with a mixture of fear and fascination. Mr. Armstrong, please warn us before engaging in such acrobatics. You nearly caused poor Blorg to release his spores in fright. Chad looked sheepish. Sorry, Prof. I guess I got a little carried away. I just wanted to show how flexible and agile we can be, even with our bones. The professor's eye stalk swiveled as he regarded Chad with a new level of respect and trepidation. Indeed, it seems we may have underestimated the physical capabilities of humans. Class, take note. Despite their rigid internal structure, humans possess remarkable agility and control over their bodies. Zorblax III cautiously raised one of their 17 arms. Professor, I've heard stories that humans can regenerate lost limbs and organs. Is this true? Before the professor could respond, Chad burst out laughing. Man, you guys really don't know much about us, do you? Now we can't regrow limbs or anything like that. That's some sci-fi stuff right there. The class collectively deflated, looking almost disappointed. Professor Zix-Norp quickly interjected, however, humans do possess remarkable regenerative abilities compared to many species. Mr. Armstrong, perhaps you could tell us about your species' ability to heal from injuries. Chad shrugged. I mean, we heal pretty well, I guess. Cuts and bruises usually clear up in a few days. Broken bones take a bit longer, maybe a couple of months. Why, how long does it take you guys to heal? The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Blorg spoke up, his fungal cap now a deep purple of amazement. In my species, a surface abrasion would take at least 1 solar cycle to fully heal. A broken appendage, well, it would simply be abandoned and a new one grown over the course of several cycles. Chad's jaw dropped. Seriously? Man, that must suck. I broke my arm playing football last year, and it was good as new in like 8 weeks. Can't imagine having to grow a whole new arm. Professor Zix-Norp's gelatinous form rippled with excitement. You see, class? This is why humans are considered one of the most resilient species in the known galaxy. Their ability to rapidly heal from injuries that would be life-threatening or permanently debilitating to other species is truly remarkable. Photon's energy field pulsed rapidly. Professor, I've read that humans can survive for extended periods without sustenance. Is this accurate? Chad scratched his head. I mean, we need to eat and drink pretty regularly. But yeah, in extreme situations, we can go a few weeks without food and a few days without water. It's not fun, though. The class erupted into another round of astonished murmurs. Professor Zix-Norp had to emit his high-pitched whistle again to restore order. Indeed, Mr. Armstrong. What you describe as merely not fun would be fatal for many species. The human ability to endure periods of resource scarcity is yet another adaptation to your death world environment. Chad leaned back in his chair, a bemused expression on his face. I guess we are pretty tough. Never really thought about it before. Zorblax III hesitantly raised an arm. Mr. Armstrong, is it true that humans engage in recreational activities that simulate danger and physical harm? Chad's face lit up. Oh yeah, we've got all kinds of extreme sports. Skydiving, bungee jumping, mountain climbing, you name it. The class fell into stunned silence once again. Professor Zix-Norp's eye stalks twitched rapidly as he processed this information. Let me get this straight, Mr. Armstrong, the professor began, his voice a mixture of fascination and horror. Humans willingly throw themselves from great heights, climb treacherous terrain, and engage in other potentially lethal activities. For fun. Chad nodded enthusiastically. Yep, it's all about the adrenaline rush, you know, pushing your limits, feeling alive. That sort of thing. Blorg's fungal cap turned a sickly shade of green. But why? Why would you risk your life unnecessarily? Chad shrugged. I don't know, man. It's just exciting, I guess. Plus, it's not like we're trying to get hurt. We take precautions and stuff. Professor Zix-Norp's gelatinous form rippled as he attempted to wrap his mind around this concept. Fascinating. It seems that humans not only survive their death world environment but actively seek out similar conditions for entertainment. Truly remarkable. Photon's energy field flickered rapidly. Professor, I've heard rumors that humans can survive in the vacuum of space for short periods. Is this true? Before the professor could respond, Chad jumped in. Oh yeah, I read about. Before the professor could respond, Chad jumped in. Oh yeah, I read about that. Some astronaut's suit malfunctioned during a spacewalk, and he was exposed to vacuum for like 30 seconds. Dude survived. Pretty wild, huh? The classroom erupted into chaos once again. Students were emitting distress pheromones, flashing warning colors, and in the case of one particularly sensitive crystal-based lifeform, actually shattering into 1,000 tiny pieces. Don't worry, they'll reassemble eventually. Professor Zix-Norp's entire gelatinous form vibrated with a mixture of fear and excitement. Class, please, remain calm. Mr. Armstrong, are you saying that humans can survive exposure to the vacuum of space? Chad nodded, a bit taken aback by the extreme reaction. I mean, not for long. And it's definitely not good for you. But yeah, we can survive it for a short time. Why is that a big deal? Photon's energy field was pulsing so rapidly it was almost painful to look at. A big deal? Mr. Armstrong, most species would be instantaneously killed by exposure to vacuum. The idea of surviving such conditions, even for a few seconds, is inconceivable, offered Blorg, his fungal cap now a swirling mix of colors indicating extreme confusion and awe. Precisely, Photon agreed, their energy field finally stabilizing somewhat. Professor Zix-Norp managed to regain some composure, his eye stalks focusing intently on Chad. Mr. Armstrong, I believe we may need to reassess our classification of human resilience. The ability to survive even briefly in environments as hostile as the vacuum of space is, well, it's unprecedented in our records of sapient species. Chad scratched his head, looking a bit embarrassed. Thanks, I guess. But really, it's not like we're invincible or anything. There's plenty of stuff that can kill us. Zorblax III cautiously raised one of their arms. Like what, Mr. Armstrong? What could possibly pose a threat to such a resilient species? Chad laughed, a sound that still sent ripples of alarm through some of his classmates. Oh man, where do I start? We've got all kinds of diseases for one. Cancer, heart disease, you name it. Then there's accidents, car crashes, falls, that sort of thing. Oh, and let's not forget good old-fashioned violence. Humans can be pretty dangerous to each other sometimes. The class fell into a contemplative silence, processing this information. Professor Zix-Norp's eye stalk swiveled as he regarded Chad with a mixture of fascination and concern. It seems, class, that while humans possess remarkable physical resilience, they face significant challenges from their own biology and society. This is a common trait among Deathworld species. The very adaptations that allow them to survive their harsh environments often lead to internal conflicts and health issues. Chad nodded, his expression turning a bit more serious. Yeah, I guess that's true. We're tough in some ways, but we've got our weaknesses too. It's not all backflips and spacewalks, you know. Blorg's fungal cap turned a deep blue, indicating deep thought. Mr. Armstrong, given the dangers you face on your homeworld and from your own species, how do humans find the courage to explore space and make contact with other civilizations? Chad grinned, his earlier enthusiasm returning. That's easy. We're curious. We love exploring, learning new things, pushing boundaries. Sure, it's dangerous, but that's never stopped us before. Heck, half the time, the danger is part of the appeal. The class erupted into excited chatter, a mix of admiration and disbelief. Professor Zix-Norp had to emit his high-pitched whistle once again to restore order. Indeed, Mr. Armstrong's words highlight another key characteristic of Deathworld species, an insatiable curiosity and drive to explore. It's this very trait that has brought humans to the galactic stage despite the numerous challenges they face. Photon's energy field pulsed with a new pattern, indicating a sudden realization. Professor, given what we've learned about human resilience and their drive to explore, do you think they might be capable of surviving on other Deathworlds? The classroom fell silent, every student except for the still reassembling crystal being turning to look at Professor Zix-Norp expectantly. The professor's gelatinous form rippled as he considered the question. That's an interesting hypothesis, Photon. Mr. Armstrong, has your species ever attempted to colonize other planets? Chad nodded enthusiastically. Oh yeah, we've got colonies on Mars already. It's not exactly a walk in the park. The atmosphere's thin, it's freezing cold, and the dust storms are a real pain. But we're making it work. The silence that followed was so profound you could have heard a Flurbian silk mite's heartbeat if they had hearts, which they don't, but you get the idea. Professor Zix-Norp's eye stalks were practically tied in knots as he processed this information. You've colonized another planet? A planet that isn't specifically terraformed to support your biology. Chad shrugged, seemingly unaware of the bombshell he'd just dropped. I mean, we've had to set up special habitats and stuff. It's not like we can just walk around on the surface without protection. But yeah, we've got people living there full-time now. The classroom erupted into a frenzy of excitement, fear, and disbelief. Students were chattering, shrieking, and in some cases attempting to hide under their desks, which was particularly amusing in the case of the gaseous students, who simply flowed around the furniture. Professor Zix-Norp was vibrating so intensely that he was in danger of losing cohesion. He managed to pull himself together literally and address the class. Students, please, calm yourselves. This is unprecedented. Mr. Armstrong, I don't think you realize the significance of what you've just told us. In the history of our galactic community, no species has ever successfully colonized a planet that wasn't specifically adapted to their biology. The fact that humans can not only survive but thrive in such hostile conditions is, well, it's revolutionary. Chad looked around the room, finally seeming to grasp the impact of his words. Wow, really? I mean, I knew we were doing some cool stuff with space exploration, but I didn't realize it was such a big deal. Blorg's fungal cap was cycling through colors so rapidly it looked like a psychedelic light show. Mr. Armstrong, does this mean humans could potentially colonize other Deathworlds, planets that even their native species struggle to survive on? Chad scratched his chin thoughtfully. I don't see why not. I mean, it would be challenging, sure, but if we can make it work on Mars, I bet we could figure out how to survive on other planets too. Heck, some of them might even be easier than Mars. The classroom descended into chaos once again. Professor Zix-Norp didn't even attempt to restore order this time, his own mind reeling with the implications of Chad's casual statement. Zorblax III, all 17 of their arms waving in excitement, managed to make themselves heard above the din. Professor, do you realize what this means? Humans could potentially colonize planets that have been deemed uninhabitable by the Galactic Council. They could open up whole new worlds for exploration and resource extraction. Professor Zix-Norp's eye stalk swiveled to focus on Zorblax. You're absolutely right. This could change everything we thought we knew about galactic expansion and colonization. Mr. Armstrong, has your species given any thought to exploring beyond your own solar system? Chad grinned, his eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. Oh man, have we ever. We've been dreaming about interstellar travel for centuries. We've already sent out probes to nearby star systems, and we're working on developing faster than light travel. It's only a matter of time before we start spreading out into the galaxy. The professor's gelatinous form rippled with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Fascinating. It seems we may need to reassess our understanding of humanity's potential impact on galactic society. Mr. Armstrong, would you say that your species is eager to explore new worlds? Chad laughed, a sound that still sent shivers through some of his classmates. Eager. Professor, we're practically chomping at the bit. Ever since we first looked up at the stars, we've been dreaming about what's out there. Now that we know there's a whole galactic community to explore. Wild horses couldn't hold us back. Blorg's fungal cap turned a deep purple of confusion. Wild horses? Are these some sort of untamed earth creatures that humans use for restraint? Chad burst out laughing again. No, it's just an expression. It means we're really excited about something. Nothing could stop us, you know. Professor Zixnorp's eye stalks twitched rapidly as he processed this information. Class, I believe we're witnessing a pivotal moment in galactic history. The introduction of a species with humanity's unique combination of resilience, adaptability, and exploratory drive could fundamentally alter the balance of power in our cosmic community. Photon's energy field pulsed with a pattern indicating deep thought. Professor, given what we've learned about human capabilities, do you think they might be able to help other species colonize hostile environments? Chad's eyes lit up at the suggestion. Hey, that's a great idea. We could be like galactic terraformers or something, helping other species set up colonies on planets they couldn't normally survive on. That would be awesome. The classroom erupted into excited chatter once again, with students discussing the potential implications of human-assisted colonization efforts. Professor Zixnorp raised a tentacle for silence. An intriguing possibility, Photon. Mr. Armstrong, would you say that humans are generally open to cooperation with other species? Chad nodded enthusiastically. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, sure, we've got our share of xenophobes and isolationists back home, but most of us are thrilled about the idea of working with alien species. We've been imagining what it would be like to meet aliens for centuries. Now that we actually have, we're not about to pass up the chance to work together. The professor's gelatinous form rippled with what might have been excitement. This is truly remarkable. Students, we may be witnessing the beginning of a new era in galactic exploration and colonization. The potential for human-assisted expansion into previously uninhabitable worlds could reshape the very fabric of our interstellar community. Zorblax III cautiously raised one of their arms. But Professor, isn't there a risk? If humans are so much more resilient and adaptable than other species, couldn't they potentially dominate the galaxy? A hush fell over the classroom as the students considered this possibility. All eyes or sensory organs turned to Chad, who suddenly looked a bit uncomfortable. Hey now, let's not get carried away, Chad said, holding up his hands in a placating gesture. Sure, we're tough and we like to explore, but we're not out to conquer anybody. We've had enough of that kind of thinking in our own history. These days, we're more interested in cooperation and mutual benefit. Professor Zixnorp's eye stalk swiveled to focus on Chad. An admirable sentiment, Mr. Armstrong. But surely you must realize the potential power your species wields. The ability to survive in environments lethal to most other lifeforms gives you a significant advantage. Chad nodded, his expression turning serious. Yeah, I get that, but look, having an advantage doesn't mean we have to use it to dominate others. In fact, I'd say it gives us a responsibility to help out where we can. Like Photon said, maybe we could use our adaptability to help other species colonize new worlds, or we could take on dangerous jobs that would be too risky for other species. There are plenty of ways we could use our abilities to benefit everyone, not just ourselves. The classroom fell silent as the students and professor contemplated Chad's words. Finally, Blorg's fungal cap turned a deep blue of admiration. Mr. Armstrong, Blorg began hesitantly, your species' combination of physical resilience and ethical consideration is most impressive. I must admit, when I first learned we would have a Deathworlder in our class, I was terrified. But now, I find myself excited about the possibilities your species represents. Chad grinned, clearly touched by Blorg's words. Thanks, man. Fungus. That means a lot. And hey, I was pretty nervous about coming here too. I mean, I'm surrounded by life forms I never even imagined could exist. But that's what's so cool about this whole galactic community thing. We've all got something unique to offer. Professor Zixnorp's gelatinous form rippled with what could only be described as pride. Well said, Mr. Armstrong. Class, I believe we've all learned a valuable lesson today. The universe is vast and full of surprises, and even the most terrifying death world can produce a species capable of great resilience, ingenuity, and compassion. The professor's eye stalk swiveled to address the entire class. As we move forward in our studies of galactic sociology, let us remember this day, the day we learned that strength does not necessitate domination, that resilience can be paired with kindness, and that even the most unlikely species can become valuable allies. As the class began to buzz with excited discussion, Chad leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile on his face. He'd come to this alien university hoping to learn about other species, but it seemed he'd ended up teaching as much as he'd learned. And honestly, he was pretty stoked about that. "Hey," Professor Chad called out, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Any chance we could organize a field trip to Earth? I'd love to show you guys some of our death world up close and personal." The looks of terror, excitement, and sheer bewilderment that crossed the faces or equivalent sensory organs of his classmates were absolutely priceless. As Professor Zixnorp's gelatinous form rippled with what might have been a chuckle, Chad knew one thing for certain. This was going to be one hell of an exchange program. And somewhere, in the vast expanse of the cosmos, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath, wondering just what these strange, resilient, endlessly curious humans would do next. Or perhaps just the beginning.